I don't want to be controversial, but 2020 was kind of a bad year. A horrific pandemic spread across the world, America descended into an election full of misinformation and fear, and I have to wait a little bit longer to see Dune. I just want to see the worm. Give me the worm! My only real escape this past year was into movies, new and old, because you've gotta kill time somehow. I saw quite a few movies from last year, the ones that weren't delayed, and I want to talk about my favorites. No particular order, no top 10, nothing like that, just the movies I really connected with in a year where I needed connection. I also feel that it would be appropriate to have a moment of silence for Dune, as it definitely would have made this list, so. Okay, let's go. Number 1, Birds of Prey. Wow, a great DC movie. Ninth time's the charm, I guess? Birds of Prey is a comic book movie that works even without the context. It's just a funny, exciting, and ambitious action movie. It's full to the brim with personality, and for the first time ever, I actually enjoyed watching Harley Quinn at all. The movie rides a very distinct line between grounded, serious action and ridiculous cartoon nonsense, but these tones never clash. They just blend together into this delicious soup of movie. I'm not good at metaphors. The whole movie has this infectious energy. It's chaotic in all the right ways, and it's worth seeing for Ewan McGregor alone. If you were on the fence about watching this one, check it out. Hopefully you'll be as surprised as I was. Or don't, I'm not your boss.
Is that a hyena in a bathtub?
I named him Bruce after that hunky Wayne guy.
Number 2, Bad Education. This is the latest film in the Bad Moms franchise, and it takes the series in a bold new direction. Instead of following moms, we follow Hugh Jackman as Frank Tassone, who partakes in the largest public school embezzlement scheme in American history. Which is pretty bad. This movie is a fascinating exploration of corruption, and Corey Finley's direction has this precision and crispness that contrasts with the dark underbelly of this world really well. It's a movie about facades, about how perfection is unattainable and human impulses will always get in the way. But those impulses aren't necessarily selfish, and the movie raises some interesting questions about the relationship between responsibility and innocence. It's also nice to see a period piece that doesn't take place in the 80s, just once. I'm so sick of 80s nostalgia, no more Stranger Things. I want to see some kids playing chaotic.
There's no excuse for it.
Well, the sociopathy.
Number 3, Palm Springs. I really love time loop movies, even though they all basically do the same thing over and over the whole time. That's kind of the point. Palm Springs doesn't waste a single idea within that narrative framework, and it has as much fun with the concept as it can. Andy Samberg and especially Kristen Milioti are great in this, keeping things balanced between goofy antics and emotional introspection. These movies are always about self-improvement to some degree, whether you're battling a serial killer or a groundhog, and this movie's take is more about learning to accept other people into your life in spite of your own flaws. Maybe that's why it's set at this picturesque wedding. Ooh, there's an idea. I don't know why I said that like that, I'm sorry. By the end, I just wanted to spend more time with these characters, and when the majority of the movie is just the same scenes over and over again, that's a pretty big accomplishment. The supporting cast is also unreal. I mean, J.K. Simmons, Connor O'Malley, any member of the Riverdale cast. It's like this movie was made for me.
It's one of those infinite time loop situations you might have heard about.
That I might have heard about.
Yeah.
Number 4, Dick Johnson is dead. Would you like to be emotionally destroyed by a documentary? I have good news. This movie follows director Kristen Johnson as she stages a variety of scenarios in which her father could possibly die. It starts as an exploration of coping mechanisms and Johnson's own family history, but develops into a beautiful example of how film can essentially make something immortal. Kristen Johnson tries and succeeds to capture a moment in time, to remember her father as she knew him, so her final memories aren't the only ones she she can revisit. And Dick Johnson just seems like the nicest old man in the world, and I hope nothing bad ever happens to him again. I think we can all relate to the idea of wanting to preserve these moments and remembering people we've lost for who they really were rather than who they might become near the end. It's very sad and very hopeful, so long live Dick Johnson.
Can you just like put one arm up against the wall? Like, yeah, that's nice.
Number 5, David Byrne's American Utopia. I wasn't really that into David Byrne or Talking Heads before I watched this movie, but that changed quickly. I was playing this soundtrack on a loop for weeks, and David Byrne was actually the top artist in my Spotify Wrapped, despite watching this movie like a month beforehand. The show itself is phenomenal. All of these musicians are moving so freely and energetically to these songs, and Byrne hasn't lost an ounce of energy since the 80s. I actually stopped recording just now to listen to This Must Be the Place again. I have a problem. Like Stop Making Sense, it's like this show was built to be filmed, and Spike Lee kills it behind the camera. This movie will probably be hit or miss based on whether or not you, well, like the music, but I absolutely loved escaping into this little musical world for a while. One could even call it a utopia. An American utopia.
Well, it will be us. And you. And that's what the show is.
Number 6, Borat subsequent movie film. My God, this movie is delightful. Or should I say, my wife. I'm so sorry. I've always been a huge fan of Sacha Baron Cohen. I love how honest his comedy is and how he knows exactly how to push people. And if we learned anything this past year, it's that it doesn't take a big push for Americans to say something stupid. Still, this movie is not just a collection of catchphrases, and even though I know Cohen's gimmick pretty well by now, the bluntness of the craziness he encounters never stops being funny. And Cohen himself even ends up getting outshined because Maria Bakalova is a superstar, and I hope she doesn't go anywhere anytime soon. And through that character, we meet the most normal person Cohen has ever brought into his orbit. I did not expect Borat 2 to be this heartwarming. This movie really isn't about the plot, though. It's about the world Cohen encounters and what he sees lying beneath it. What he reveals at times is more than a little unsettling, but very insightful as to how little has really changed since the first movie came out.
What is more dangerous, this virus or the Democrat?
Democrats.
Number 7. Tenet. At this point, I've just accepted that I'm a mark for Christopher Nolan, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Tenet is the most Nolan-y Nolan movie yet. It's all temporal logistics and secret agencies and time moving backwards and forwards at the same time. Pretty much every single line in this movie is exposition, and yet it still rocks. Tenet really demands your attention and probably multiple viewings, but I don't think it loses anything from that because there's so much to unpack. After I watched this movie, I was just pacing around my apartment, thinking and theorizing. I was just so energized. This is one of the most technically impressive movies I've seen recently on every level, which makes up for the less emotional approach to the story. I do wish that I had seen this in theaters, even with the, let's say, overpowering sound design, but the fact that I was just as engaged while watching on my laptop is surprising. Just please don't tell Nolan I watched this on a laptop. What are you doing here?
Well, I've seen too much. Well, we'll try and keep up.
Number 8. His House. I've been trying to watch more horror movies lately, and there were some great ones this past year, but this was my favorite. It's a haunted house story with a fresh perspective, mixing together real-world trauma and mythology in some fascinating and terrifying ways. I'll skip the part where I say a bunch of fancy adjectives to describe the horror and just say it's very spooky. There's this constant sense of being out of place, and the pressure from all sides just keeps building and building on these characters, and it culminates with a pretty beautiful idea about memory, about preserving the past within yourself and letting go of guilt. This is a really strong debut from director Remy Weeks, and I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for his projects in the future.
We are good people.
Whether or not you're good people, it's not me that needs convincing.
Number 9. Soul. Pixar really knows how to break me, and I deeply resent that. Soul hit me really hard, especially since I feel like I've been going through the same thing as Joe Gardner. And his journey, as he looks at his life from the outside in, was a beautiful exploration of how searching for a sense of purpose isn't the ultimate answer we want it to be. There's a universality to this story that's really resounding about what holds people back from greatness, or their idea of greatness. It's got everything you want from Pixar. It looks beautiful, and the imagination behind everything is so impressive. I've just been feeling really stuck lately, not just physically, and Soul gave me an idea of how I want to change that when things get back to normal. I think that's the best thing a movie can achieve, changing the way you look at life and how you want to live it. This was my favorite movie of the year because it's the movie I needed this year. It reminded me why I love movies.
No smell, no taste.
Or touch. See?
Okay, I get it.
Number 10, Shithouse. This was one of the smaller, quieter movies I saw last year, and I thought it was lovely. It's basically a take on a story like Before Sunrise, but set in college, which, fun fact, every single white male film student has tried to write. Even me. It's a very authentic portrayal of this point in life, and it feels simultaneously so personal and introspective and so universal. Cooper Raiff and Dylan Galula are magical together. You feel every step of their journey through the awkwardness and the moments where things just click, which is basically the entirety of college life, just kind of bouncing back and forth between awkwardness and things just kind of working. In that spirit, the movie keeps building on this idea of random chance being the basis for so many relationships people form at this time, which is both reassuring and true. This idea that things will work out. You will find stability in life, no matter how alone you might feel. You just have to dive in and embrace it. And then you graduate into a pandemic and you can't find a job and things just stay awesome. At least I got that film degree.
Are you sure that that was the girl?
Yeah.
It just seems like she didn't know that you existed.
So, to me, those were the best movies of 2020, and maybe you agree, maybe you don't. Either way, it does not matter. I hope you all had a good year, or at least as good as possible in these conditions, and I hope you found some great new movies, books, music, or whatever keeps your brain busy. I'm feeling optimistic about this year. I'm trying to start fresh and have fun again on this channel, so stay tuned. There's some good stuff coming. Whatever happens, I just want to see Dune, man. I read all 6 of those books to prepare. I just want to see Paul Atreides on the big screen. I want to see him ride a giant sandworm. Just give me the worm.